The moment Emma saw the face behind the steering wheel, her perfectly curated world cracked down the middle. Rain hammered against the Uber's windshield as Jake, the man she'd publicly dumped for having no future, smiled that same quiet smile and said, "Hey, Em, long time." What she didn't know was that the car's registration sat in the name of a shell corporation worth $3.1 billion, and he wasn't here by accident. But let me rewind 6 months, because the night Emma Bishop destroyed Jake Carter in front of 73 people at the Riverstone Country Club wasn't supposed to end his story. It was supposed to start hers. The champagne had been flowing for hours at Trevor Hammond's engagement party when Emma finally snapped. Jake stood by the appetizer table and his department store suit, the same one he'd worn to 3 weddings and a funeral, while Emma's colleagues circled like sharks who'd smelled blood in the water. "So Jake, what do you do?" Trevor's fiancée had asked, her diamond catching the light like a taunt. I work in software, small projects mostly." Emma had felt the heat creeping up her neck. Small projects. For 2 years, she'd listened to Jake talk about building something meaningful, while her friends bought Teslas and summer homes. For 2 years, she defended his 12-hour days that resulted in what? Apps nobody used? Websites for local businesses? She made $72,000 as a marketing associate that year. Jake made $31,000. Emma's going places, her supervisor Richard had interjected, hand resting too comfortably on her shoulder. "That Tokyo campaign? Brilliant. We're talking director-level trajectory here." And that's when something inside her had snapped. "You know what?" Emma's voice had cut through the murmur of conversation. "Jake and I want different things. He's comfortable, coasting, and I'm not going to apologize for wanting more than a 1-bedroom apartment and homemade birthday dinners." The silence that followed was arctic. Jake's face had done something she'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, something that looked almost like resignation. Like he'd been waiting for this. Can we talk privately?" "No." She'd pulled off the promise ring he'd given her, sterling silver with a tiny sapphire, bought with 3 months of savings. She'd handed him the ring in front of everyone. And then she'd left with Richard, who'd promised her the world over whiskey sours and empty compliments. That was 6 months ago. What Emma didn't know, what nobody at that party knew, was that Jake had been 48 hours away from the biggest acquisition deal in the medical software industry. The small projects Jake worked on, they were a telemedicine platform called LifeLink that he'd been building in secret for 4 years. The 12-hour days, he'd been coding a revolutionary diagnostic tool that could predict cardiac events 3 days before they happened, accessible to anyone with a smartphone. The night of that party, his phone had been buzzing in his pocket with messages from venture capitalists. $3.1 billion worth of interested parties. He'd been trying to tell Emma for weeks, but she'd been so busy climbing ladders at Peterson Marketing that she'd stopped asking about his days. He'd wanted to surprise her, wanted to see her face when he could finally say, "We made it." Instead, he'd watched her walk away with a man who'd peak at a middle management salary and a leased BMW. Jake had stopped wearing his engineering hoodie after that night. started driving for rideshare services at odd hours just to think, just to remember what it felt like to be nobody special. The irony wasn't lost on him. He could buy the entire fleet of cars, but instead he drove his old sedan through rain-soaked streets, picking up strangers, being invisible. If you can't stand people who judge others by their bank account instead of their character, type "worth isn't wealth" in the comments, because what Emma was about to discover would test everything she thought she believed. Emma's life after Jake had looked perfect on Instagram. Richard had gotten her into the right parties. She'd moved to a high-rise downtown, 1,200 square feet of white walls and anxiety. The Tokyo campaign had collapsed after 3 months. Turns out director-level trajectory meant disposable when budgets tighten. Richard had ghosted her the day after she'd gotten her termination notice. Now, she was working at a boutique marketing firm making $43,000 a year, driving a car held together by hope and zip ties. And tonight, that car had finally given up on a highway exit ramp in the worst thunderstorm of the season. The Uber app had glowed in the darkness. Driver, J. Carter, 4.9 stars, Toyota Camry. She'd been too cold and wet to process the name. But when the car pulled up and she saw his face through the rain-streaked window, time did something strange, folded in on itself. "Hey, Em. Long time." His voice was the same, gentle, like he'd never been humiliated in front of 73 people. She'd stood frozen in the downpour, designer purse, last remnant of her successful era, clutched against her chest. "Jake, you're an Uber driver?" Something flickered in his eyes. "I drive sometimes. Clears my head." "You getting in?" The car smelled like coffee and rain. NPR played softly on the radio. Jake pulled back onto the road with the same careful precision he'd brought to everything, cooking dinner, fixing her laptop, listening to her complain about her day. "Where to?" he asked. She gave him her address. He didn't react to the downgrade from her old place. "So," Emma's voice sounded small, "how've you been?" "Good. Busy." Jake navigated the flooded streets like he'd memorized every pothole. Lifelink got acquired 4 months ago. I kept the team together, though. That was non-negotiable. Emma's brain snagged on the words. Lifelink. Wait, that's the medical app that was all over the news. The cardiac prediction thing. "Yeah. You worked on that?" His hands tightened slightly on the wheel. "I built it. Coded the core algorithm in our old apartment, actually. Remember those nights you thought I was playing video games?" The memory hit her like cold water. She'd resented those nights. Called him absent, said he cared more about his computer than her future. The acquisition was $3.1 billion, M. I took home about 40% after investor payouts and team bonuses. The numbers didn't compute. Couldn't compute. Wait, you're saying you're a billionaire? He said it like the word tasted strange. On paper, most of it's reinvested in the foundation now. We're building free clinics in underserved communities. Turns out saving lives is more addictive than saving money. Emma's throat had gone completely dry. "The night you gave back the ring," Jake continued, voice steady, "I was 2 days away from signing the term sheet. I'd been trying to tell you for weeks, but you were always rushing somewhere, some meeting, some networking thing. I kept thinking, one more day, I'll surprise her, we'll celebrate." He turned onto her street. "Then you said I had no ambition in front of everyone we knew, and I realized you'd already decided who I was. No amount of money was going to change the fact that you didn't actually see me. The car stopped in front of her building. Rain drummed against the roof like a heartbeat. Why didn't you say anything? Emma's voice cracked. At the party, after, why didn't you defend yourself? Jake's smile was sad and knowing. What would I have said, Em? Actually, I'm rich? Would that have changed the fact that you valued me by my tax bracket? I didn't want someone who loved me for what I could buy. I wanted someone who loved me for what I was building, for why I was building it. He unlocked the doors. My mom died because she couldn't afford preventative cardiac care. She had warning signs for 3 days and ignored them because the ER copay would have meant no groceries. I watched her die in a waiting room while insurance companies debated pre-authorization. Emma felt something break inside her chest. That's what those 12-hour days were for. That's what the small projects were about. I was trying to make sure no other kid watched their mom choose between medicine and rent. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Emma saw what she'd been too blind to see 6 months ago. Jake hadn't lacked ambition. He'd been working towards something so far beyond her understanding of success that she'd mistaken depth for shallowness. The app saved 4,000 lives so far. We get letters, photos, wedding invitations from people who would have died without the early warning system. That's what I was building, while you were at Trevor's party, measuring me against Richard's BMW. Emma couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I see you're at Hartwell Boutique Marketing now, Jake said. Not cruelly, just factually. They're good people. Kara Hartwell donates to the foundation. How's that going? It's fine. The lies died in her throat. I got fired from Peterson. Richard said he'd help me, but he wasn't who I thought he was. I know. You know? Richard's been married for 11 years, Em. 3 kids. I found out about a week after you left with him. Almost called you, but he shrugged. Figured you needed to learn that lesson yourself. The humiliation was complete, total. You could have told me. You wouldn't have believed me. His voice held no satisfaction, just truth. You already decided I was the loser and he was the winner. Some things people have to discover on their own. If you believe real success is measured by impact, not income, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next would prove that the universe has a strange sense of justice. Emma reached for the door handle. God, Jake, I'm so sorry. For all of it. You deserved better than what I did to you. Yeah, he agreed simply. I did. She climbed out into the rain, turned back. Can I buy you coffee sometime? Not because of the money, just to talk. Jake studied her for a long moment. My number hasn't changed, Emma, and never changed. Then he drove away, taillights disappearing into the storm. Emma didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every memory replayed itself with excruciating new context. Jake coding at 3 a.m., not gaming, but saving lives. Jake in his cheap suit because he'd been funneling every dollar into development costs. Jake's quiet patience when she'd complained about her salary. because he'd been days away from making both their lives comfortable. If only she'd waited. She'd thrown away a man who would have given her the world because she'd been too impatient to watch him build it. The next morning, she did something she hadn't done in 6 months. She looked up Lifelink. The articles were everywhere. Billionaire philanthropist Jake Carter pledges 80% of his fortune to healthcare access. Lifelink founder, my mother's death saved thousands of lives. The reluctant billionaire, why Jake Carter still drives a 2015 Camry. There was a photo from the acquisition announcement. Jake in a simple navy suit, surrounded by his 12-person team, diverse, young, exhausted-looking, and radiantly proud. The caption quoted him, "We didn't build this for the exit. We built it for everyone who's ever had to choose between health and rent." Emma had chosen a man who leased status symbols over a man who bought futures for strangers. She'd chosen wrong. 3 days later, her phone rang. Unknown number. Emma Bishop? Yes? This is Kara Hartwell. I own the firm where you work. Emma's stomach dropped. Here it comes, the other shoe. Whatever Jake had said, I had coffee with Jake Carter yesterday. He mentioned you were one of the most creative marketers he ever met. Said you had a gift for finding the human story in product launches. Emma sat down slowly. I'm building a nonprofit arm for the company. Pro bono campaigns for organizations that can't afford traditional marketing. Medical nonprofits, community health initiatives, that sort of thing. It's full-time, salary is $68,000 plus benefits. I need someone who understands that impact matters more than billable hours. Miss Hartwell? I don't understand. Jake didn't ask me to call you, Kara interrupted. He just told me what you were capable of when you cared about something. Whether you still have that in you is your business. But the job's real, and it's yours if you want it. Emma's hands were shaking. Why would he? After what I did to him? That's a question you'll have to ask him yourself. Kara's voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, the best people I know are the ones who learned from their worst mistakes. Think about it. The line went dead. Emma stared at her phone for 10 minutes straight. Then she did something she should have done 6 months ago. She texted Jake's number. Thank you. You didn't have to do that. I don't deserve your kindness. The reply came 3 hours later. It's not about deserve. It's about who you could become. Coffee, Sunday, 10 a.m., Riverside Cafe, if you want. Emma typed and deleted 17 responses before settling on, I'll be there. The Riverside Cafe was the place they'd had their first date 4 years ago. Emma arrived 20 minutes early, stomach twisted in knots. Jake was already there. 2 coffees on the table. 1 black, 1 with oat milk and honey. Her order. He'd remembered. Hi, she managed. Hi. He gestured to the chair. Wasn't sure you'd come. Emma sat, wrapped her hands around the warm cup. I almost didn't. Wasn't sure I could face you after everything. Emma. Jake's voice was gentle but firm. I didn't come here to punish you. I came because I meant what I said. You're talented. That job is real, and Kara legitimately needs someone. I recommended you because you're good at what you do, not because I'm trying to, I don't know, win you back or prove something. Are you...
I forced myself to meet his eyes. Jake laughed. Soft. Genuine. I've been building free clinics and managing a foundation for 4 months. I barely have time to sleep, let alone date. But you have time to drive Uber at midnight in thunderstorms? His smile turned rueful. Okay, you got me. Sometimes I drive when I need to think. When the meetings and the lawyers and the board members get too loud, it helps me remember why I started this. Real people, real problems, real conversations. Emma took a shaky breath. I'm not asking for a second chance. I know I don't get that. But I need you to know I've spent 6 months understanding exactly what I threw away. Not the money. I don't care about the money, Jake. I threw away someone who woke up every day trying to make the world less cruel. Someone who turned grief into grace. Someone who saw his mother die and decided to make sure no one else's mother would die the same way. Her voice broke. I was so obsessed with looking successful that I couldn't see what actual success looked like. You were building cathedrals and I was angry you weren't buying jewelry. Jake reached across the table, stopped just short of touching her hand. Emma, I forgave you the night you gave the ring back. What? I was angry, yeah, hurt, but mostly I was sad. Sad that you couldn't see what we could have been. Sad that you thought ambition looked like corner offices instead of changed lives. He finally took her hand. But Emma, I never hated you. I needed you to grow up. And it sounds like you have. I don't expect good, because I'm not offering anything except friendship right now. His grip was warm, steady. Maybe that's all we'll ever be. But Emma, I missed that person who used to help me brainstorm features at 2 a.m. and bring coffee to my team. The one who believed in the work before she got distracted by what it wasn't giving her fast enough. Emma felt tears sliding down her face. I miss her too. I miss me. The person I was before I decided worth was measured in square footage and job titles. So find her again. Jake squeezed her hand once, then let go. Take the job. Do something that matters. And maybe we'll figure out if there's still an us somewhere down the road. But no promises, Em. Not yet. That's more than I deserve. Probably, he agreed, but he was smiling. But here's the thing about me. I'm an idiot who believes in second chances. My entire app is built on the concept that it's never too late to course correct. Emma took the job. The first campaign she built was for a community clinic in South Memphis, the neighborhood where Jake's mother had died. She poured everything into it, every late night, every creative risk, every ounce of talent she'd been wasting on luxury car launches and designer perfume ads. The campaign went viral, not because it was clever, but because it was true. Real stories, real people, real lives saved by accessible healthcare. Jake sent her a text. Mom would have loved this. Emma cried at her desk for 20 minutes. They had coffee every Sunday. Sometimes Jake talked about the foundation's expansion into rural healthcare. Sometimes Emma vented about difficult clients. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, reading the paper, existing in each other's orbit without pressure or expectation. 4 months into the new job,
Emma's campaign for the free clinic won a National Healthcare Advocacy Award. Jake came to the ceremony, not as her date, but as a colleague supporting another colleague's work. But when her name was called, he stood and applauded like she just won an Oscar. After the ceremony, they stood outside in the cool October air. "I'm proud of you," Jake said simply. "Not because you won, because you chose to matter." Emma turned to him. "I'm not the same person who gave your ring back, Jake. I'll never be her again." "I know. And I can't promise I won't mess up again, that I won't be shallow or selfish or scared." He cut her off gently. "Nobody's keeping score anymore." "I am." She stepped closer. "And I need you to know, if you ever decide you want to try again, really try, I won't waste it this time. I won't measure you against anyone else's definition of enough, because you were always enough. You were always more than enough." Jake studied her face in the streetlight. "Ask me again in 6 months." "What?" "Ask me in 6 months if I want to try again." His smile was soft and hopeful. "Give yourself time to be sure this version of you is permanent. Give me time to trust it. And if we both still want this, well, maybe the universe has a sense of timing after all." Emma laughed, tearful, genuine. "That's very wise." "I'm occasionally capable of wisdom." He kissed her forehead, brief and tender. "Go celebrate with your team. You earned this." Then he walked away, hands in his pockets, disappearing into the autumn night like he had on that rainy evening 4 months ago. But this time, Emma knew he wasn't really leaving. He was just giving them both time to become the people who could build something lasting. And 6 months suddenly didn't seem very long at all. Some people spend their whole lives chasing the appearance of success. Jake Carter spent his building the reality of impact. Emma Bishop had to lose everything she thought she wanted to discover what she actually needed. The last time I checked, LifeLink had saved over 8,000 lives. Jake still drives his 2015 Camry. Emma still works for Kara's nonprofit marketing arm, turning purpose into campaigns that change policy. And 6 months from that award ceremony, well, that's a story for another time. But I'll give you a hint. Sterling silver with a tiny sapphire looks completely different when you understand what the person wearing it actually values.